Joining us now to talk about those swing states and more, CBS 8 political analysts Laura Fink and Wendy Patrick. We've had a lot of build-up to get here, but we are here. As things are starting to roll in, what are you looking at right now? Let's start with you.
I'm looking at the suburbs. The suburbs are swing areas, and Kamala Harris is supposed to do well. Traditionally, these are Republican areas that have been shifting over to the Democratic column of late. The question is Kamala winning margins enough to make up for those rural areas that we know go red? How are the suburbs swinging, and how many women are voting?
How about you, Wendy?
I think that it's interesting how many women are voting, how many men are voting in the suburbs, because we've seen a shift since the last election. And we're going to see more of a shift given that we have different gender dynamics this time than we did in 2020. But if you go back all the way to 2016, things were very different depending on how you decided to vote. So you not only have the different genders, you also now have different ways of voting. Remember, Republicans are traditionally waited till the election day. Now, when we see these early numbers, it's reflecting more of the Republican vote than ever before. We have to keep that in mind as we look at the way that's going to shift during the course of the evening.
Only early information in. Have you seen, Wendy, anything that surprises you so far tonight?
I think the surprise has not been so much as the numbers as to the exit polling data. In other words, we have heard that many Trump supporters were saying they chose to go to the polls to vote for him versus the other, some of the Harris voters who chose to go to the polls to vote against Trump. And the Republican numbers are higher in that respect. So if you look at that and you use that as a lens with which to view this early vote, you're seeing a lot of Republican early vote. And that's why I'm saying, you know, Republicans are cautiously optimistic. But if that's the way it broke this cycle, we may see a swing.
Is that surprising, though? I have to follow up on that because we've always known that Trump supporters are wholly committed. Their enthusiasm, there's no break. Once they're in, they're in. So 80%, while that may sound surprising, I don't find that surprising at all.
But it's surprising in that so many Republicans voted early this time. Remember that
part,
traditionally
sure.
They always wanted to wait till to voting day. And I have to say, let's look at that through the lens of this conspiracy theory. The election's going to be, you know, there's already been legal challenges. We saw more legal challenges after the fact. Now I feel like we've seen them before. But if they're thinking that, and if that's one of the reasons they're voting early, that may also give us an idea as to the kind of Republicans that are coming to the polls early.
What's surprising you? Anything at this point that you're saying?
I am pleasantly surprised to see that we haven't had any drama.
We can all just
night is early.
Yes,
night is young.
I am excited that the drama will be on the campaign trail and not at the voting booth. We need peace, we need uniformity, and we need counting to proceed in an orderly fashion.
It is kind of surprising after all the rhetoric. I mean, we have had bomb threats specifically aimed at urban centers in Michigan and in Georgia from, they think they're from actors outside of the country. That's not good, but we can all celebrate that. What are you watching for outside of the presidential race? Are there close races in Congress, maybe here in California, that you're keeping your eye on?
Well, we're going to be up all night because California returns, we know, don't get counted till later. We're as a West Coast state, but there are 5 congressional races here that could swing the House with the margin that Republicans have right now being only 5. Blue states like New York, like California, like West Coast states, Washington and Oregon, that's where the House will be won or lost this year. So we have a little bit of drama in our lovely Sunshine State.
You know, I think part of the other, you talk about drama, is many of the states that had a problem last election cycle have really revolutionized the way they're going to count votes. They have opened them, they've pre-organized them. In other words, I feel like we're going to have the results sooner than we did the last election. And that's going to be good because the length of time it takes to get a result, that's when people start getting nervous and, well, maybe there's a conspiracy. And we've already had some rumblings around the country. Would all sort of just like to have a way to get those votes counted quickly.
I just want to say, though, that some states like Arizona have laws that prevent counting till the day of Election Day, which means those long waits could continue in some areas. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Most of them do, and that's why one of the things I've noticed is they're getting them ready. So in other words, they have them open, they have the inner ballot open, and they're doing everything they can to speed up the counting. We'll see if that's as successful.
And they're giving them so many avenues to vote in so many states and to do it in different ways. It adds to the chaos for us because there used to be metrics you could see ahead of time that you kind of had an idea. We have no idea.
We are reading the tea leaves, the crystal ball, and I'm looking at 2 types of counties. Obviously, the suburbs, which we talked about earlier, but I also want to see what is the impact on the Latino vote, specifically with the Puerto Rican vote. So if we can look at counties, I think there's one in Florida with the early vote. If we can dig into those counties and see, are they a bellwether? Are we going to see other states moving in this direction? Does Kamala Harris with Latinos reach that magical 60% number? Like, these are constituencies, as we slice and dice the electorate, where you can kind of see, did she win the day stay? Did he hold the line? These are the sorts of things that are not guaranteed predictors, but could be indicators of how the race is moving.
And you know what else? Since we're talking demographics, remember that Donald Trump is always called the blue-collar billionaire. You're looking at, is that demographic still a demographic that's going to vote for him, or are they even more all in than ever before, given the state of the economy? I would say the same thing about the black vote, because remember, President Obama was out there talking, Kamala Harris has been talking about it. So there's more demographic issues in play, perhaps, than there was when it was Trump and Biden.
I'm so looking forward to seeing the backside of this election so that we can really try to understand better what's happening, because it's been fascinating to watch this unprecedented, the wildest election we've ever seen. We've talked about it.